Dear participants, Namaskar. Myself, Dr. N. Rawat, Faculty in Sociology, currently associated with Department of Sociology and Social Work, Dr. Hari Singh Gaur Vishwavidyalaya, Sagar. I have to deal with the topic Changing Livelihood Patterns of Unit 3. Friends, today we are going to discuss Changing Livelihood Patterns. This lecture is a presentation of emerging livelihood in rural areas, taking into account the impending, the promoting factors of rural livelihood. Broadly, the lecture can be divided into 5 parts like introduction, state initiatives and rural livelihood, seasonal migration and Manrega, migration and rural livelihood, and finally conclusion. So, let us begin with introduction of livelihood in general and rural in particular. Livelihood refers to capabilities of the people. The means of living includes sufficient hygienic food, good health, a continuous income to procure food supply and access to both tangible and intangible assets. Tangible assets include physical resources such as land, equipments, trees, cattle, tools and utensils, etc. Intangible assets include various claims and demands. The claims over material, moral and other support and demand may be for food, loans, gift, work, employment and basic infrastructure, etc. Attaining livelihood security is the prime importance for developing countries like India, where about 1/3 population is rural, who strive for day-to-day bread, lives in poor economic condition, where children are malnourished and having poor literacy, etc. If we look the role of a state in rural livelihood security, then find that in recent years, Government of India has been making a huge investment in promoting livelihood security through various programs like Mahatma Gandhi National Rural Employment Guarantee Act Manrega, National Rural Livelihood Mission NRLM and National Skill Development Corporation. Currently, many of the definitions of livelihood security is derived from the work of Chambers and Conway, which includes capabilities, assets and activities required for a means of living as livelihood. Household livelihood security is adequate and sustainable access to income and resources to meet basic needs, including adequate access to food, potable water, health facilities, educational opportunities, housing and time for community participation and social integration. Several possible sources of entitlement constitute livelihood of household, which are based on the endowments that a household has and its position in the legal, political and social fabric of society. Livelihood is secure when households have secure ownership of or access to resources and income earning activities to offset risk, ease shocks and meet contingencies. These ideas of livelihood security involve both right-based and need-based approach and embody fundamental attributes, possessions of capabilities, access to tangible and intangible assets and existence of economic activities. Historically, India is rural economy based country. About 70% population lives in rural areas. Agriculture is the main source of earning for rural people. Besides agriculture, other occupations were also practiced as source of earning such as small scale industries, non-timber forest produce collection, horticulture, cattle herding and poultry, etc. The involvement in multi-economic activities works as shock absorbers at time of crisis. If any of the sources of income becomes exclusive, then it may increase risk of collapse of family. Actually, collapse of family economy at time of failure of that particular activity. Hence, the rural economy was balanced with involvement in multi-economic activities. Sources of livelihood earning were distinct from region to region, community to community and culture to culture, etc. as per the ecology and available resources. The sources of livelihood earning are close to nature and within the habitat. The globalization is formally going on in the country since 90s. It is neither friendly to tangible and intangible rural heritage nor geographical space historically inhabited by rural people. There is massive expansion of mega development projects in the rural areas. The resources available in those areas were perceived as the haven for industrial and corporate houses. It is claimed that these houses have snatched the available resources in many rural areas. Thousands of villagers were displaced from their century-old place of residence without any suitable and meaningful rehabilitation packages. Today, in many pockets, it appears that they were uncalled for the unwanted. In some pockets, the corporate houses are working for their welfare under corporate social responsibilities scheme. We can say CSR. How these two initiatives and interventions have affected the livelihood of rural masses need to be examined. This needs to be seriously analyzed because the doubt is being raised about the functioning of CSR. Questions are being raised that how non-repairable environmental damage directly or indirectly caused by corporate houses may be repaired through CSR. Also, in spite of increasing state initiatives through various schemes like New Panchayati Raj Institution, PESA, Forest Right Act, Manrega, Rehabilitation and Resettlement Policy, Land Acquisition Act, Food Security Act and host of other steps, conclusions are drawn that quality of life of rural masses is even lower than their earlier status. How and to what extent these interventions have succeeded from livelihood point of view. Transportation and communication technology were popularized in villages of the country. All-weather roads were built. The cropping pattern has been patented under the given situation. How and to what extent the villages at large feel safe and secured. How technology is rural areas friendly. How and to what extent rural mass have come out of the trauma of impoverishment, landlessness, joblessness, homelessness and marginalization, food insecurity, high morbidity and loss of access to community property resources. Why it is so that in spite of various livelihood schemes at the village level, the cases of seasonal outmigration merely for the fulfillment of basic requirements is increasing day by day. Question is also raised about the role of outmigration in meeting basic requirements of rural India. Seasonal outmigration and Manrega has emerged as an alternate of livelihood in rural areas. So, if we look in this context, then find that the livelihood resources in rural areas, whether it is agricultural land or any other, have been decreased over the time. Land holding is shrinking day by day with increase of population. Forest area is also decreasing and the biodiversity too. Increasing population created an overcrowding on available resources on one hand, and commercialization of resources led to its maximum utilization. Such a situation made livelihood insecurity among rural people. They get it difficult to find livelihood chance in their habitat, so they are in search of alternate. The unavailability of work within the periphery of their village, rural people seasonally out-migrate in search of job. Most of the seasonally out-migrated people are involved in wage work. In this way, wage work has emerged as new source of earning livelihood among the rural people. As laboring opportunities at the source dry up and wages remain unattractive, and meeting expenditure from village income becomes difficult. A section of laboring and cultivating householders feel that seasonal migration is inevitable for survival. In the process, migrates in search of livelihood, moves to location and employments that are relatively better but devoid the regulations that protect their rights. Migration does help them so survive but fails in creating environment of prosperity. The worst affected in the process are females that are left behind. This section presents the impact of migration on employment and wages, living standard of migrants, as well as the contribution of females in migration and of the females who were left behind. While casual labor and Manrega provides about 72% of total village employment to migrants, own agriculture, animal husbandry and traditional occupation account for only 25% village employment. For rural households, cultivation, casual labor and Manrega are main sources of village employment. But despite this, over 70% of available labor of rural people remains unutilized. Among migrants' households, about 65% of the available labor remains unutilized in village. In the case of non-migrants, own agriculture, animal husbandry and traditional occupation is important and accounts for over 51% employment, while casual laboring and Manrega account for another 44% of employment. Together, the village activities are able to provide employment to about 44% of available labor with the non-migrant households. This shows that only about 56% of available labor of non-migrants households remains unutilized in village activities. Thus, the relatively higher level of unemployment village along with high unmet expenditure from village income is responsible for pushing out the rural mass in search of livelihood in cities. Labor relations at the destinations, though market driven, are not free from exploitation. For rural migrant households who are predominantly employed in construction industries. The system of advance payment, their long working hours, payment mode and lack of formal work agreement result in exploitation of rural people. The state machinery responsible for social security and work related disputes remains unmindful to these factors. That is why about a fourth of migrants change their occupation. The search for new work starts by visiting the morning roadside labor markets first and then factories and construction sites. A third of migrants feel that received wages were lower than the agreed wages, and about half of migrants faced delayed wage payment. About 85% migrants work without any written agreement. However, over 60% migrants working in security agencies and factories have written work contracts. Migrants also face problem of long working hours, misbehavior at workplace and disputes relating to payments. Despite these hardships, seasonal migration is inevitable because about 45% annual income of migrant households is occurring from migration. Migrants, however, ascertain that migration remittance helps them in surviving the resourcelessness but is unable to pull them out of poverty. The governments should not see voluntary internal population movements as a threat. Indeed, internal migration offers societies an opportunity for economic growth and the convergence of welfare. For tribals, the assertion of HDR is like a fresh air because it supports the internal labor migration. The question emerges here that at what extent migration has provided rural livelihood security in the country. The rural-urban migration in Indian policy circles is considered not only anti-development but also which brings poverty to urban areas and is a major cause of unemployment, social disruption and overburdened urban civic amenities. But our finding shows that migration has become inevitable in rural drylands. The seasonal migration from rural areas is inevitable because over half of total income of poor and landless rural households accrues from migration. Income from village activities fails to meet their annual expenditure. The larger this unmet expenditure, the more is the pressure on households to migrate. The remittance are able to sustain the rural mass, though inability of remittance to pull out the migrants from poverty is also evident. Higher unemployment, larger unmet expenditure gap, choice of employment in destination, and being in rural areas significantly increase migration intensity. But in the social and economic relationships with the mainstream society, the migrants find themselves in a disadvantageous position. This disadvantage results in exploitation of migrants in wage payment, delay in payment, access to the social amenities and social security. The remittance in this situation works as insurance against poverty. Therefore, like employment and livelihood in agriculture and laboring, migration too is a livelihood option though a bit dynamic. Unfortunately, state has failed to recognize this. Over 129 million persons in the India depend on migration for livelihood. Our estimates shows that this creates financial links between urban and rural areas of a tune of about 1.5% of GDP of the country. But the migrants who have established these financial links remain invisible to policymakers and ignored by industry. Both the industry and state have remained insensitive to the needs and rights of these laborers. Friends, with the earlier discussion and analysis, we can say that two important policy implications are emerging from this analysis. First, creating environment that obstruct migrants is desirable. The policy option that improve agricultural productivity and village employment, that ensure food security and improve access to PDS fall in this category. And second, inevitability of seasonal migration forces us to argue that if the current policy frame is unable to contain migration, it is time to support it. Yes, I say it is time to support it. A way of reducing the incidence of migration is to intensify investment that conserve the soil moisture and makes agriculture sustainable. Evidence reveals that civil society initiatives in central tribal belt of India have reduced seasonal migration significantly. Replicating such efforts may be helpful for the helpless migrants. Although a shock can push even a well-to-do household into a debt trap and has to resort to migration as a coping mechanism, for a large section of households that are resourceless owing to population pressure, migration is the only coping mechanism. Therefore, the processes that facilitate migrants in the course of migration are as important as reducing migration. Making the lives of migrants at the place of destination less stressful, provide them with amenities there and make their position stronger in the labor market is as important as improving agriculture and increasing borrowing capacity of migrants at the place of origin.